Hello chaps, and welcome back to the Ration Book. My name's Rebecca, I love all things vintage, and today we're going to be revisiting one of the most popular videos on this channel, which is living on wartime rations for £10 a week. It's been about a year since I made that video, and with food inflation, prices and everything, I just thought, probably now as we're going into autumn, it's a good time to check in and see if that still stands. So, I'm a little bit more tech savvy than I was back then. So I've got a few screenshots for you and I've worked out the numbers, and yes, you can still live on £10 a week doing the wartime ration diet. The pros and cons with this diet, there are always pros and cons with any diet, but I'd say the biggest con is that you have to make everything from scratch. Everything. That's the worst. But the best is that you know what's in your food. People lived on this ration for nearly 15 years. And the folks in Blighty were said to have never been healthier. And I think that's because there was an awful lot of attention put onto the nutrition, the protective foods, the muscle building foods, the warming foods. You know, you really were taught in a simplistic way, but you were really taught what food was. There's no necessarily particularly right or wrong way of doing this. Some people are really into the 1940s and they will want to do it to the T. Other people, I imagine the majority of people, are watching this video because they'd like to, well, they'd like to feel that they can get by without struggling with their food bill. You know, we're all different and we all do things in our own way. As long as it works for us and it brings us happiness, that, you know, we're all good, then yeah. But anyway, getting into the nitty gritty. Right, so here we have the sheet with all my figures and things on. And as you can see, the least expensive has come in at £5.35 and the more expensive has come in at £12.66 per week per person for your rations, which I don't think is that bad. So what I've done is I have gone onto the Tesco website. I've used that website because it's pretty good. They've got almost all their stuff on there. You know, what they do is, there's rather helpful things I found as we went along, is they give you the price in kilogram. So it makes it really easy to sort of work out the numbers from the weights. The only thing that you don't get in a weight is the meat, but we'll talk more on that in a moment. So what I've tried to do with them all is sort of like for like. So I may have found things a bit cheaper, but I've tried to do sort of like for like as best as I can. What would be the most expensive, and then what would be the, you know, much less expensive. I don't like the word cheap. You know, less expensive. Out of the We'll Eat Again book, we have got our list of rations. We're just following the weights in her book. So usually like 2 ounce will be 50 gram, 4 ounce is 100 gram, and an 8 ounce is 225. So starting with our rationed items, we'll begin with the bacon. You get 100 gram a week of bacon. That means the less expensive is 48p per week. The most expensive is £2.05. With the more expensive, you're looking at sort of the organic, the outdoor reared sort of animal products and that sort of thing. Probably higher quality, probably going to be more akin to what the food was back then. I don't know, good quality food, but less of it, but good quality. With the meat, it wasn't on weight, it was on price. You got 1 shilling twopence. This sometimes went up to 1 and 6, it sometimes went down to 8p. From my understanding, the average meat ration per week would get you half a pound of mince or a couple of small chops. So that's what I've shopped for, and I have found that mince is kind of sold in 450, 500 gram packs. So 1 pack of mince is 2 weeks ration. And the same with the pork chops. I found belly strips. You get 4 in the pack. 2 of those would be 1 week's ration. The cheap one would be around, if we go for the middle of those, so that'd be about £1.50 of meat per week for your meat ration. But again, it's still not a lot of meat, really, is it? When you consider that probably a lot of people, they eat meat every day, it's like, ooh, blimey. You know, you've got to learn to make it stretch. So moving on to the butter, you get 50 grams of butter. So one block will last you for 5 weeks. You cut it into 5. Again, the Kerrygold, that's an Irish butter, and it's from grass-fed cows out in the fields, you know, just as it was. It's all a balancing act, and it's all just what you can do, you know. Cheese. Now, there's a couple of different options for the inexpensive cheese. So you can get one for £5.54, and then you can cut that. I mean, that will last you, if you're buying a whole kilogram, it'll last you 20 weeks. Unless, of course, you know, you're a hard labourer. If you were out on the land, you got extra cheese because there was no canteen facility for you. If you were in the factory or anything, then, or you were doing industrial, you know, sort of stuff, then you got extra meat. Or if you were in the services, you got a little bit extra because you needed to be fighting fit. Yeah, 20 weeks is a long time. The other alternate, I'm highly aware that some people simply can't stretch to £5.54 in one go, in 1 week. You know, they just can't. So an alternative would be the grated cheese, which comes in a little bit more, but not too much more. And that comes in at £7.96 a kilo. Margarine. Now, I'm not sure if the margarine of today is the same as yesteryear. Probably not. But anyway, it's coming in quite inexpensive at 20p a week for the lesser expensive. So that's good. Big difference when you use the Lurpak. The Lurpak may be actually what was more akin to the what they had in the war. But who knows? Who knows? We weren't there. We don't know. Fat-wise, cooking fat, I've used lard and I've used dripping for the 2 different versions. 3 pints of milk you're allowed per week. Now, you cannot buy a 3-pinter. It's a 2 or a 4. So what you could do is buy a 4-pint 1 week and a 2-pint the next week. You could also buy a 2-pint fresh and also allow yourself 1 pint dried, you know, powder, because they did that during the winter. When the milk yield went down, you had 2 pints of fresh and then 1 pint of dried milk. So that made your 3 pints up. So that makes 36p a pint on the less expensive, and the organic one is 54p a pint. So that's what I've worked out there. Your dried milk, now that actually is more expensive to have than fresh, because the inexpensive one, you get enough to make 6 pints, and that is 53p a pint, whereas the fresh is 36. And with the Marvel dried milk, it's coming in, you get 4.5 servings, 4.5 pints worth of dried milk powder in the carton, and it's £1.11. So that's quite pricey. So you're much better just getting fresh. Unless, of course, it's useful to you for whatever reason, but you're paying for the processing, aren't you? Sugar-wise, you get 4 weeks worth of sugar in a 1 kilogram bag. So it's coming in at 27p. Not bad, not bad. And I find, a lot of people find, I think, that who do it, you can't get through your sugar. So you can always rein that in, or you could save it for preserve making, jam making, things like that. With the preserves, any preserves really count, whether that's honey, jam, golden syrup, whatever. You're allowed a £1 jar per 2 months. So it was a treat. It was definitely a treat. I've chosen strawberry jam just because I know that that's popular. So the inexpensive one is 6p a week. So what I've done is I've worked out how much the kilogram would be, and then I've rounded it to 500 to make it simple. So half of that is 45p for your 2 months. So divide that by 8, you've got 6p. This is an interesting one. I couldn't find, I mean, I'm only going on what I could find on the website today as it stands. I couldn't find any inexpensive tea bags. There's probably some, I don't know, but yeah. The loose has turned out to be a lot less expensive than the tea bags. So if we look at the difference, you've got loose leaf tea at £6 a kilogram versus £10.40 a kilogram for the tea bags, which makes a big difference. The more expensive tea bags are almost double the price of the loose leaf. So I find that loose leaf tastes so much nicer. If you go to a charity shop, you can buy a teapot for £1. You can find a tea strainer for, I don't know, 50p, £1, something like that. I mean, you can drop lucky on these things, and the flavour is so much nicer. It really is. Moving on to the eggs. The powdered egg. I couldn't find anything, sadly. With the eggs, you were allowed 1 shell egg per week. If you can get your hands on some powdered egg, every 4 weeks you'd get a box, and that would have the equivalent of 12 eggs in it. So you'd actually have 3 powdered eggs and 1 shell egg per week. Sometimes that would go down to 1 every 2 weeks if the supply was low, especially throughout the winter, because they go off late. And then finally, we are on to our sweeties. It's funny how the exact same sweets, the exact same weight of the exact same sweets, is completely different prices when you change the packaging. How they can put £1.10 on by putting them into a carton, I do not know, but yeah. So that is a breakdown of how I have come to the totals. So with the totals, I've added the if there's a choice between amounts, such as the mince or the chops or the loose leaf or the tea bags, because we're going for inexpense, I've gone for the lesser cost. And with this one being more expensive, same again, I've gone for the more expensive out of the options. But that is it. That is, you can live on proper food for just over £5 a week and then add what you need to. Now, they did have this thing called points. Fruit, vegetables, bread was never on ration during the war. Bread came into ration 46 to 47 because it was a very unsuccessful wheat year. So that did finally come onto ration. Rations were implemented from Monday, the 8th of January, 1940. And they finally came off ration in 1954, and meat was the very final one to come off. So, all in all, they had quite a lengthy time of it. If the idea of this helps you at all, that's amazing. Comment and let us know. As you're embarking on this, you may want to have a look into recipes, specifically ones that are tailored and designed towards working with a ration. You will not go wrong if you start with the beautiful Marguerite pattern. She was a lady who helped the ministry to come up with various concoctions to help feed people. And yeah, she worked in the Harrods Food Hall and all that sort of stuff, I think. So yes, but she's got 2 fabulous books. This is where I've taken the screenshot of the ration book from. And this is basically a more sort of condensed version, Wheel Eat Again, of this book, which is Feeding the Nation. And this goes into a little bit more detail. It's such as it will discuss the point system, welfare food, that sort of thing, de-rationing, yada, yada, yada. But it has lots of really great recipes and tips and things for you. But so you've got your dig for victory, and your warming food. So I mean, again, like I said, they really took notice of educating people about nutrition. It's fun just to go through them and give it a go. A good place to go for finding recipes to help stretch your rations is Carolyn's fabulous website. It is the 1940s Experiment. She's got a Facebook group as well, so you can make loads of new friends and just, take on board all the tips, the tricks, the advice, whatever you want to ask, whatever you want to find out or have help with, they're there. So, 1940s Experiment. Another book you may like if you're interested in embarking upon the 1940s ration challenge and all the rest of it, is Eating for Victory. And that is a compilation of all the leaflets that the Ministry of Food published throughout the war. And if you like that book, there's also an accompanying, which is Make, Do and Mend. And that is all about eking out what you already have with your clothes, your fuel, your gas, your electric. So definitely highly recommend these. Highly recommend Marguerite Patton and the 1940s Experiment website. Best of luck with it, and let us know how you get on. See you in the comments. Bye.